I am not a CEO, HR director, VP of HR, or even a HR manager. I'm not an entrepreneur or founder. My name is Derek, and I'm a millennial. I'm very thankful and privileged to be invited to speak today, because otherwise it might be like a HR conference about getting more female executives run by a panel of 12 men. So you're all here to sort of learn more about millennials. And here I am today, as a millennial, speaking on millennials. And I've had the rare life experience of being a millennial alongside millennials in both Australia and the Philippines. There were a lot of similarities between millennials, in my experience, but there are also huge differences. One of the biggest themes when I was in Melbourne was that everyone around me was really excited to become independent, to break free the shackles of their family and move out and have their own life and strike out. And then when I came to the Philippines, I was very surprised to find the opposite. That I was the youngest of my millennial co-workers at the time, yet I was actually the most independent. And people were sort of shocked and amazed that I had packed up and sort of moved countries on a whim by myself. And they couldn't fathom that. So that helped me realise that, in my view, there's actually a lot more similarities between cultures and within socioeconomic groups than there is through age groups across cultures. And I know part of living at home here is a sort of family values, and a lot of it's also a financial reality. But even for the people I met that had the financial means to move out, they just didn't have that same burning desire to break free. They didn't feel like they were being smothered at home and they had to spread their wings and sort of escape. That whole mindset was just at complete odds with the Filipino culture. I've been asked today to talk about technology and how we leverage it to recruit, engage, manage and retain millennials. The staff of our company vary in ages from 19 to 50 years old, but if we all agree that millennials are people in their sort of early to mid 30s and below, the vast majority of our staff are millennials. So how do we use technology? Jeff Bezos, the CEO and founder of Amazon, one of the largest and most successful technology companies in the world, and one of the richest people in the world, he was asked in an interview, how do you, as a thought leader and innovator and pioneer, how do you decide what trends you're going to follow in the next 10 years? What's going to change? How do you know what's going to change? And he said, I don't like that question. What no one ever asks me is what won't change. And I think that's actually a much more important question. So that was the question he answered instead. And he said in his business, no one will ever want to pay more than something is worth, and no one will ever want slower delivery. So his entire focus is on how can we be the most cost competitive and how can we deliver the fastest. He knows no one will ever be upset that a package arrived too soon, so he can invest as much money as humanly and business and practical in faster delivery because it will always have a sustainable benefit. And he knows he can't predict the future, so he doesn't even try. He just doubles down on the things that won't change. Coming from the founder of a super high-tech and successful company, I thought this was very practical and down-to-earth advice. And keep this in mind because I'll come back to it a bit later in more detail. In our company, at Flat Planet, we love technology. It's the engine that powers our entire business and makes it possible, offering high-value virtual talent to clients mainly in Australia, but also US, UK, New Zealand and Europe. Without technology, our business wouldn't exist. Low-cost communications like Skype, cloud software for everything you can imagine. So we owe our existence to technology, and always acknowledge that. Having said that, we don't have all our staff hot desking with MacBook Airs, working from home, taking unlimited vacations, or having a company chef or masseuse. We don't have any of that. Any of those things you see on all the LinkedIn articles and in the news about, what the latest sort of Facebook or Dropbox or Airbnb or Google is offering their staff. And they tend to be the companies that get voted as the best companies in the world to work for. But I would argue that those companies exist in a parallel universe. And that most of us here today are brick and mortar, professional service, consumer products, real estate, all very practical industries. We have to make a profit, we have to generate mainly our own revenues to fund the growth of the business, we have to get customers. A lot of people miss the fact Uber, Airbnb and these sort of companies have never had a profitable month in their life. And if the funding ever stopped, they would die. Because that's their oxygen. And one day, it's a gamble, it's a high risk, high return, it can work. And, I hope it does. I like all the companies. But you have to be careful comparing yourself to those companies, unless you are the HR director of Facebook. And then maybe you're in the same ballpark, you're in the same street. But if you're running a practical, profitable business that needs to be cash flow positive and sustainable, it's a very risky thing to compare yourself to. So let's give an example of like a new hire perk, for example, and then sort of look at that in a bit more detail. So what if you thought, millennials love technology, people love free stuff, I want more millennials, I want the better millennials, so I've got to stand out, so I'm going to give all new hires a free iPad. I guarantee if you do that, you'll get more applicants, you'll recruit faster, you'll lower your time to hire, you'll probably lower your cost to hire, and then you'll be happy, and everyone will, you'd think, oh, well, that's great. But if you look a bit deeper, you have to think, well, what about all our existing staff? They didn't get an iPad when they started, and they're the ones that have been here the longest and put in the most work. Are they going to be resentful of the fact all the new people get iPads and they didn't? Is it going to affect their attrition? And the other aspect of any business competitive advantage is defensibility. What happens when everyone offers an iPad and it becomes standard? Do you offer 2 iPads? One for them and one for their friends? Or how do you avoid getting sucked into this arms race of perks and benefits, which can definitely become an arms race, and it does in the parallel Silicon Valley sort of universe? So you have to weigh all the pros and cons. So again, we're trying to make this like a case study, very practical, evidence-based, what we do. So what do we do? As a smaller BPO in the industry that's leading the charge on perks and benefits within the Philippines, how do we maintain a low turnover? How do we have several staff that have been working for us for over 5 years, despite only being a 6-year-old company, and many more at the 3- and 4-year mark? Unheard of numbers in the BPO industry. So I want to talk about something I call the forgotten millennial. First, we go against the extreme youth focus of the BPO industry. We're all here today talking about millennials. And I'm sure as soon as I say the word millennial, an image pops into your mind of a 20 to 25-year-old. Yet we've all agreed that a millennial is someone in their early to mid-30s and below. And I'm sure you've all come here today to learn about millennials, but what's really on your mind are those sort of early 20-year-old graduates. The elusive sort of tech-savvy, the digital natives, the experience ahead of possessions and learning ahead of money. This sort of media stereotype. But what about those Filipinos that have got a good degree, they've got 7, 10 or maybe 12 years of work experience across a number of companies or fields, and they have a huge amount to offer companies, but they're often aged out, of the youth-focused BPO industry because they're not the most exciting, freshest graduates, the most new, the cheapest. You know, they are a lot better, but they come at a higher price, and it's easy for a lot of companies to forget the distinction between price and value. So a lot of people would know that if you're a fresh graduate, you basically can't walk down a street in Makati without getting a call from a recruiter, seeing an ad that says graduates, no experience, and just getting bombarded with requests if you're on LinkedIn, or again if you go to a job fair or on Job Street. Yet these forgotten millennials, once they've got a bit more experience, a lot of HR people think, oh well, you know, they probably want a higher salary, and maybe they're stuck in their habits, and oh, maybe they're out of touch, and maybe I have to teach them everything, and they dismiss them. But they're still millennials. They grew up with all of the same things we heard earlier today. But on top of that, they also have other skills. It's easy to get sort of impressed or sort of sucked in by an early 20s applicant who has these amazing tech skills. They can whip up a prototype for an app within 2 hours and a website, and they can do all this high-tech stuff. And it's easy to kind of make a lot of assumptions. Oh, well, if they're good at that hard stuff, that means they're sort of good at everything. Or you assume everything else is equal. So my next point is technology-related blind spots. Hands up, anyone in this room who has had to tell a young staff member that something was not appropriate to send via email, instant message, or text, and that for something of that nature and real significance and importance and a lot at stake, or to a more senior executive stakeholder, they should have picked up the phone and made a call. Has anyone had that experience? No? Okay, maybe it's just us. But that's, you know, we tell our staff, you know, don't deliver bad news to your client over an email, you know, when they're expecting it. Because even though you're a millennial, often your bosses and your stakeholders abroad aren't millennials, and they expect important news or significant news to be delivered over the phone. Well, what about, have any of you brought a sort of a fresh, young, wide-eyed millennial, early 20s to a networking night? Has anyone done that before? And have you ever found that they struggle to put down their phone and look up and make small talk and develop business relationships? Yeah? So again, they have these high-tech skills which are great, but you also have to know in spending hours a day on multiple devices their whole life, maybe simultaneously, one device in each hand, that they have perhaps missed other foundational skills which you forget to even ask about. You know, previously companies would think about training staff on how to use technology and all their systems, but you forget that, you know, if you're hiring people that have grown up on technology, you might have to actually spend more time training them on the foundational communication skills. So a key part of our recruitment strategy is hiring those millennials, those high-value staff that have 7, 10 or more years experience, because they are, not because they are the cheapest, but because they're the best value. They bring stability, empathy, and a lot of skills which, even through training, often take life experience to build and can't be taught. And this market, especially in the Philippines, is very underrated. So there's much less competition for a 32-year-old Filipino than there is for a 22-year-old Filipino in the job market. And again, you might be thinking they've got all these expectations, they've got all this, you know, additional things, they've got bigger families, bigger obligations, but again, when you factor in the value of what they bring, and you step away from everyone chasing the graduate job fairs and the fresh graduates and the early 20s people, you realise there's actually not a lot of options for them. Because these industries are also focused on the latest and youngest, they often overlook these people and completely ignore them, and they can really struggle to find work. Despite their skills, they're just completely overlooked. So I want to circle back now to what I mentioned earlier about Jeff Bezos and the concept of focusing on things that don't change. This is a philosophy that we apply in our business. No matter what happens, no matter how long into the future you look, I can guarantee that staff never want to be underpaid, or do work that is meaningless. So we make sure that we pay a premium for good staff, to pay them enough that they can live with dignity and give them high value, meaningful work. We don't rally them around short-term perks or novelties or obscure, catchy benefits and hiring bonuses. But we aim to inspire them by telling them how we're in the opportunity business as a BPO. Because whenever they do great work and their clients back home get the confidence and overcome any sort of doubts they might have about outsourcing or offshoring, that great work of that first pioneer hire of every client gives them the confidence, because everyone starts with one person, to hire the second person, the third person, the fourth person. And so when we get to a client with 20, 30 or 40 staff, all those opportunities which have been brought to the Philippines from all these different corners of the world exist because of the great high quality work the first person did, which built the confidence and created these opportunities. And living in the Philippines, where there's no shortage of talent and resources, but a huge shortage and lack of opportunities, this is something that resonates with our staff. And further to that, beyond a sense of purpose, we focus on practical matters that make an impact, like paying our staff weekly, something rarely done in the BPO industry, but that has a huge impact on the money management and personal finances of our staff. So again, we're not sitting in the dark ages, we're a high-tech business, we try and stay on the cutting edge. So what do we invest in? We invest in technologies that help us run our payroll faster and more efficiently and more accurately. We built our own time and attendance software and apps. Not because it's trendy or exciting, payroll's very boring, but because we know that no matter what changes, the things that never change are that staff never want to be paid slowly or the wrong amounts. So we know by investing in things which improve these forever concepts that we'll get a measurable and sustained benefit without question. And we know that regardless of technology or society or economic changes, especially in the Philippines, family is a key part of everyone's life. And this is why we celebrate an annual family day, where we invite staff to bring in their spouses, parents and children or loved ones, whoever they want, and we have a huge party for them all, and with food and games for the kids and activities, because family is always important. And it's that family that allows them to come into work each day and create more opportunities in the country. We know that health is the number one wealth, which anyone who's ever been sick will quickly testify. So we offer great HMOs to our staff, because that will never change either. We don't hire people as contractors, because no one will ever want less job security or less certainty in employment and benefits. We celebrate birthdays because everyone wants to be recognised on their special day. These things will never change. Fads in technology, HR, recruitment, engagement, they come and go. Some will stay and some won't. So some final actionable advice. If I can leave you with one thing to take away, because I've covered and jumped around a little bit, I would recommend, despite the theme of today, is to don't worry about Gen Y or Millennials. Before you know it, Generation Z, those born in the year 2000 and beyond, they're not many years away from graduating, they'll be knocking on your door, sitting in your lobby, with their CVs in hand or on their tablet or on their hologram or however they've got it, and they'll be there, sitting there, eager to work and eager to get a job, and you're going to be pulling your hair out thinking, oh crap, how do I deal with this new generation? I just finalised and perfected and tested and 3-year planned my Gen Y strategy, now I've got to rip it up and come up with a Gen Z strategy. And again, there are differences. We had a great presentation this morning that covered a lot of the practical differences, and people are different. I'd like to remind everyone that within each generation, it's easy to generalise, but it's also easy to overlook the ways in which we are all the same. So instead of focusing on the little trends, there's big trends to keep in mind, of course, but instead really direct your focus on what will not change. Ask yourself, what is important at a human level, at a cultural level, and at a practical level? Everyone in this room, regardless of industry, is in the people business. And by doubling down on the things that never change, you'll get the best candidates, you'll engage them, and you'll retain them for a long time. Thank you.
Very good. 6 words.